Hi, everybody. This is Pete Delatorre. I'm the CEO of Camacol Talk, and welcome to another edition of Camacol Talk. This program is brought to you by the City of Doral, Baptist Health South Florida, City Place Doral, and Career Source South Florida. This weekly video podcast is all about what's going on in South Florida and beyond. We focus on leaders, community leaders, business executives who inform and inspire us to take our businesses to that next level. My guest today is Amy Kimberlain. She is a registered dietitian, community health with Baptist Health South Florida. And Amy is going to share with all of us 6 steps to having really good health and being well overall. So let's listen to that conversation. All right, everybody, as promised, with me now is Amy Kimberlain with Baptist Health South Florida. How are you, Amy?
I'm doing great, Pete. Thanks for having us today.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. And we're going to talk about a topic which it affects every single person on the planet, which is their health, their nutrition, and being a registered dietitian. I know you're going to share some valuable information for all of us. Before we get to some important, insights and steps to have enjoy the best health possible, can you share just a little bit about yourself and the things that you've done and where it's all led today?
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. My background has always been in community nutrition. And so even from when I first started in dietetics back as a youngin, all the way till now, I've really helped with the prevention aspect and thinking about, unfortunately, sometimes people might not be faced with something until that moment, but I always like to put the steps in motion, if you will. I've taught a lot of children in elementary age groups. So planting those seeds to allow for them to really kind of then, later in life be like, what did she teach me about all eating 5 a day? And so it starts to really set the tone as they grow up. So community nutrition has been my base and background. And then I also have a really big interest and then delved into the area of diabetes. So I'm a diabetes care and education specialist. And that's been a really, at the forefront, even with what we do with Baptist and a diabetes prevention program. And again, really going into that prevention standpoint to help people know what it is that they need to do in order to help improve their overall health. Such an important area that we need to, again, focus on and pay a little bit more attention to. So that's kind of my background. I'm also a yoga teacher, but that's, again,
okay.
A side note.
What inspired you to do this?
Well, growing up, my mom was a home economics teacher, and I would be honest in telling you that I had that privilege of just kind of knowing balance with food when we were growing up. And I know that as I started to grow and get into college and see kind of other people's backgrounds and see that it wasn't always, I always had a vegetable on the plate growing up, Pete, right? That was just the normal thing. If we had a hot dog, she would put the homemade coleslaw on top. We used to call them slaw dogs. I mean, again, it was her way to naturally do it and not force a vegetable on us. But yet I look back and reflect and go, gosh, she was really ahead of her time in thinking about how to help us see that the balance can be there, the variety, all of that can be part of eating healthy, but yet still including food as so much more than just the fuel. It's the cultural connection, it's the ability to have social interactions and all of those things. So, again, I think that's kind of what helped me to think passionate into saying, I want to do this and help others see the same thing that I saw growing up.
That's a great story. So you have 6 steps to help support our nutrition, our wellness. Let's run through them right now. And I want all the viewers to pay very, very close attention because, again, it affects you. It affects all of us. And our intention, you and I, Amy, is for the viewers and the listeners to have the healthiest life possible. And you're going to share with us now the 6 steps to make that happen. Let's start with number 1, which is about eating a balanced diet.
Yeah, so I think nutrition really for me starts with reflecting where they're at, Pete, and being able to, so the viewer, the person that's listening in today, you know, a lot of times you might think, I got to do it all. She's going to say these 6 steps and we just need to put them in motion and do them. But I think sometimes that can lead to frustration, right? Because at the end of the day, you become overwhelmed and you're not really sure where to start. So I always encourage people to kind of go back, reflect, and say, what's the one thing I want to work on and change to be able to make these changes and impact? Because at the end of the day, the small changes really lead to big results. So yes, eating a balanced, varied diet, start thinking about how the plate looks. So a visual, is half of the plate coming from fruits and vegetables? Because then the next step would say, am I getting a variety of colors to make sure I'm getting all the different vitamins and minerals? But half of that plate really should be fruits and vegetables. I brought a few along today because, you know, I think they really speak to how interesting they can be and they don't have to be boring. So we can talk recipes and all those fun things because those should be really the star of the show. So that's half of the plate. A quarter of the plate should be lean protein. Again, whether it's an animal source, whether it's a plant source, but that quarter of the plate, lean protein. The remaining part are our grains, whether it's brown rice or whether it's whole wheat pasta or whether it's you know, a potato. All of those are making up that last quarter of the plate. I have an Italian background, Pete, and I'd be honest in telling you, sometimes our plates are not always strategically perfect, right? It's that cultural.
I'm from a Cuban background, so I'm with you on that one. I know what you're talking about.
Right. I mean, I think when we think about balance of that plate, it's not always going to be like, again, even, right? But I think our goal is to say, then how do we start to include a little bit more? Of course, now I have some sauteed onions and mushrooms and peppers all thrown into the pasta, right? You know, so again, really bringing that balance to allow for flavor. And I think that's the message to take away when we think about how does our plate stack up, right? Literally.
I love the way you just explained it, having a strategy to your eating.
Yeah.
Because we eat when we're hungry and whatever's in front of us, we just gobble it down and that's that. But we don't think about, you know, what we're eating, and the way you just shared that idea makes me think. And what you also mentioned about color. I'm seeing a lot of commercials on TV about color in your diet. I'm trying to think, what is that talking about? And it's what you talk, all the vegetables and everything. The more color you have, I think the healthier you're eating. So I think that's a really cool thing. Let's talk about something.
Yes, go ahead. Hang on, you know, and I think that's where, you know, again, it's the breakfast, it's the lunch, it's the dinner. You know, we eat 3 meals a day. Not all of them are going to be perfect. And I think that's where I said, you know, again, somebody might think, well, I didn't start the day off great, so I'm just whatever, going to keep going. But no, it's each time an opportunity to really start to say, how can I start to improve what it is that I'm eating? Because that ultimately helps you to feel better. It's literal fuel, as I said, for other reasons that we eat, of course, as well. But regardless, that is our ability to start to give our nutrition literally through the food that we're eating. And then just about the colors, I mean, listen, my nephew is 11 and he does still to this day does not like anything green. And so, you know, maybe there's some adults out there that are the same way. But I think that once you start involving him, he's now starting to call me and say that he planted bok choy in a garden. I mean, honest, that's, I know I'm winning, Pete. The silent cheer over here from afar, because, you know, I think he doesn't get it, but I do. And that's where those seeds have been planted with him. He's starting to say, hey, I want to plant it. And now I want to make something with it. And I want to have that ownership to be able to say, I like it or I don't love it.
The next topic is something I think most of us know, that we either shouldn't do or limit very as much as possible, and that's smoking. And whether it's cigarettes, whether it's cigars, I'm a cigar smoker. I don't do it every day. But what more can you share with us on that topic that we don't already know?
No, I mean, I think that it's not to belabor the point, Pete. I think you just said it. I mean, everyone knows we need to. It's something that's hard because whether it's the habit that's been formed, the addiction from the nicotine that they're receiving, I think, again, there's parameters in place if you have the conversations with your doctor, your healthcare providers, in order to be able to have the means to begin to taper down and hopefully then quit, if you will. So not my total area of expertise, it's always the food, but I like to put it in there because it's this whole area, Pete, really thinking about how do I improve my overall health? And sometimes we forget to mention it, even though we know again, the issues that arise from it.
Another thing that is very prevalent society is alcohol. I mean, we drink to celebrate. We drink when we're stressed. Enlighten us a little bit there.
The goal or the idea still is in anything that we're doing, Pete, is that reflection. Start with where you're at. Begin to acknowledge how much it is part of the work week or the weekend week or the at night cap, nightcap type thing. If you don't know how much you're taking in, it's really hard to then begin to start to understand about reducing the amount that you're taking in. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just social drinkers. There's a lot of people that may just be doing it because of stress. And we are obviously always stressed. Life is stressful.
Well, what's stress? We haven't had any stress the last couple of years. What are you talking about?
Not at all. Not at all. But no, I mean, interesting too, the numbers have increased, Pete. So, I think that really speaks to the level of that connection like we're talking about. And so the rough estimate is 1 glass per day for females, 2 glasses per day for men. And again, it comes back to depending on what the consumption is, if it's hard liquor versus a beer or wine, right? 5 ounces for wine, 12 ounces for a beer, 1.5 for hard liquor. But, again, those are the amounts, but it's interesting when you may ask someone, well, how many glasses of wine did you are in a bottle, right? Again, it comes back to that may not be what they're pouring. So again, the connection of knowing what the serving size is. I was in the grocery store the other day, and I'll be honest, sometimes that's even enlightening to me, Pete. The size is now a can sometimes for the wine. Yeah. And that's almost 2.5 servings. So perspective. Exactly. Yeah.
It really is. And in many cases too, alcohol, they talk about red wine, or really, I talked to a cardiologist a few years ago. Any alcohol daily that you consume moderately is actually good for you for the most part. We've talked about so far something that is good for us, being proactive, which is the eating. We've talked about a couple of things to try to avoid or minimize. Let's talk about something else that is very, very important to our wellness. And it's something that we can do at different levels, which is to exercise.
I like to call it joyful movement, Pete.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're sitting so much of the day. It's kind of like, can we just get up and move more? And that's the first place I start with in people checking. We have these different watches or things that people can track numbers, and that's all helpful and good. But really now that more than ever, we just need to get up and move. Whether it's that you're able to go for 30 minutes at a time, or you divide it and you do 10 minutes 3 times a day, the benefits are there, not just from an overall health component. Maybe it's improving our heart and the strength, right, and resistance stuff that we may be doing. All of those are improvements within health, but the look at down the line of how it can help to prevent many different chronic diseases.
Yes.
Again, where I work within diabetes, exercise is medicine without taking anything. It just helps the insulin respond better. It's kind of like, again, a nice way to, again, move that energy over to the cells that they need. And again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's right. Going for the quick, brisk walk.
Absolutely. We have a couple of minutes left. I wanted to touch on 2 final points. Let's talk a little bit about sleep. And I think the more stressed we are, the less sleep we have or get. We're tossing and turning, we're overthinking. And then there are some people that say, I do great. I only sleep 4 hours a night and I'm refreshed. But most, I know if I only slept 4 hours a night, right. I don't know how functional I would be. So just let's touch on that briefly.
I think that everybody's amounts are different, Pete. So I think ultimately you do need to know what level you're able to function right. on. The rough estimate for adults is 7 to 9 hours, right? So find your sweet spot, if you will. Yes. But we all, again, are so connected. I have my phone over to the side, right? We're just so connected, whether it's the laptop went to sleep, by the way, a second ago. I was typing in my password. Like what, in the middle of we're doing too many things. And so we need a wind down time. At night in order to be able to disconnect and set the tone for sleep. Again, whether we're staring at those computer monitors or whatever that it is, or if this mind is racing, we need it to literally start to connect to allow for rest. And our bodies need the resting and restoring. It plays such a critical role in so many different areas. Obviously within food, there's 2 different hormones that regulate our hunger, Pete. So if we're not getting enough sleep, ultimately it can lead to that imbalance the next day, and you might find yourself hungrier and going like, what happened?
Yep.
So connection and knowing. So even though we may think we might need as much, I always challenge people, try and get a little bit more and then pay attention that next day to see if things are improved, if you will.
Absolutely. And finally, the topic on stress, which is related to everything. We've had COVID to deal with. We have the economy now is a challenge to most people. What's going on and inflation, all that. But and we talked about this the other day. The stress that we're going through is has a big part to do with how we feel physically.
Yeah.
And so and we can have another conversation about managing stress, but can you give us just one little quick nugget on that?
The truth, Pete, is that life is stressful. We joked about it earlier, and my encouragement is for people to have that toolbox of ideas and ways to manage their stress. So whether it's meditating, whether it's going for a quick 10-minute walk, whether it's turning on a song and having a quick 5-minute dance session, your way that you are able to at least manage, it doesn't remove stress, helps in that moment. And those little connections throughout the day allow for a little bit more even keel response, if you will, to stress when it comes into our lives.
Absolutely. Amy, this has been phenomenal. Great insights, great information. I can tell you're very, very excited and passionate about what you do, and you've got me excited, and you've created more awareness inside of me than when I first started talking to you here today. So on behalf of the viewers and the listeners, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and share these very important topics for all of us.
Thanks so much, Pete. Appreciate you guys having us here. And again, take one thing away from today and start to try and reflect.
I love it. You take care of yourself.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you once again to Amy Kimberlain, who shared some valuable information for all of us. We cannot hear enough information about our health, and so she really pointed out some important things for the benefit of everybody. I'm going to ask you to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, again, this show is on every Friday 11 a.m. on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Thanks once again to all of our sponsors and all of you that are with us for each and every one of these broadcasts. So have yourself a fantastic weekend. You take care and see you soon.